Shortly after the American Civil War, the United States moved away from an agrarian rural existence to an industrial one concentrated mostly in the cities. This led to a large concentration of wealth, as fewer and fewer factory owners began to accumulate more and more wealth. In 1886, during the decline of the Knights of Labor, after the Haymarket Affair, the American Federation of Labor was founded in order to better organize the skilled craft laborers. They believed that capitalism just needed to be nudged in order to make the market work for those that toiled. They were not interested in organizing immigrants, minorities, women, or the itinerant workers that used the railroad to move about the country looking for work. This left a lot of talent and passion on the table, and an organization formed in 1905 to take advantage of that talent and passion.
Good news to you, I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. My daddy was a miner, and I am a miner's son, so I'm sticking with the Union till every battle's won. Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals here. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair. Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? So don't scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize. Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on? Which side are you on now? Which side are you on?
Although talks about forming one big union started in 1904 in Chicago, it wasn't until June 27, 1905, that an industrial congress was convened at Bradd's Hall. Among the founding members were a who's who of the early 20th century labor movement. Lucy Parsons, wife of Haymarket martyr Albert Parsons, and a fiercely devoted anarchist labor leader in her own right. Mary Harris, Mother Jones, one of the labor movement's most eloquent advocates, and the veteran of many long and bloody coal miner strikes. Eugene Debs, an organizer, most recognized for his contributions to the Pullman Railroad strike, if not his later presidential runs as a socialist leader. And Big Bill Haywood, a silver miner and secretary-treasurer of the Western Federation of Miners from Idaho. It was Bill Haywood that gave these opening remarks. Fellow workers, this is the Continental Congress of the working class. We are here to confederate the workers of this country into a working class movement that shall have for its purpose the emancipation of the working class from the slave bondage of capitalism. The aims and objects of this organization shall be to put the working class in possession of the economic power, the means of life, in control of the machinery of production and distribution, without regard to capitalist masters. And thus the industrial workers of the world were born. Many of those founders would, with time, drop out of the IWW, fearing it had become too radical. However, the industrial workers of the world, maybe more than any other organization ever, resists the great man or woman of history narrative. It is not the story of a few larger-than-life figures. It is the story of many and varied passionate members of the working class. Those members would come to be known by the nickname Wobblies. The story of the origins of the nickname is lost to time, but the most satisfying apocrypha is that an immigrant who could not speak English as his primary language had trouble pronouncing industrial workers of the world, and can only get out industrial wobbly wobbly. A fitting story, if only because of how many of the founders and members of the Wobblies were immigrants. The Wobblies sought to organize all those left out of the craft labor movement, migrant labor, factory workers, and all other so-called unskilled laborers. The Wobblies believed that labor produces all wealth, and that all wealth belongs to the producer thereof. The industrial workers of the world, envisioned by its members, was one big international union of the working class that would include trade and craft affiliates from broad categories, like mining, forestry, and factory work. A group of workers from every walk of life, to exclude none but the parasitic owner class. The enemy was clear, and the tactics were varied. Amongst the various scamps and migrant workers was a Swedish immigrant named Joel Emanuel Höglund, who would later shorten his name to Joe Hill, one of the most prolific poets of the labor movement. He would go on to contribute to The Little Red Songbook, a book of songs sung to the tune of old hymns. Well, Joe would be framed for murder in 1914 in Utah and executed. His legacy is as great as any labor leader or organizer. Other effective organizing tactics included silent agitators, stickers given to the itinerant workers, called hobos or bindlestiffs, used to add propaganda to the environment where workers would be able to see it, in boxcars and encampments known as hobo jungles. These were not the only tools in the Wobblies' toolbox, however. There was also sabotage. One of the first direct action strikes the Wobblies were noticed for was the pressed steel car strike of 1909. Also called the McKees Rock Strike, the walkout drew national attention when it climaxed on Sunday, August 22, 1909, in a bloody battle between strikers, private security agents, and the Pennsylvania State Police. At least 12 people died. Big Bill Haywood and William Troutman, who would later go on to write the novel Riot about the McKees Rock Strike, were joined by several other members of the IWW in assisting the protesting workers with a paramilitary strike-breaking force owned by Pearl Berghoff, known for utilizing brutal tactics. The strike would end on September 8, 1909, with a wage increase for the striking workers. January 1, 1912, the Lawrence textile strike began. After a law went into effect making it so the weekly pay of women and children would go down, immigrants from 51 nationalities walked off the job. 56 people, including Wobbly organizer Joseph Etter, started a strike committee to lead the workers. Before the month was out, Anna Lo Piezzo, a striking worker, was killed by police, and Etter and Giovanni were arrested. After Bill Haywood and Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, a Wobbly who would later go on to help found the ACLU, and who inspired Joe Hill to write the song Rebel Girl, came to Lawrence to run the strike. They came up with a PR strategy for sending hundreds of strikers' hungry children to sympathetic families in New York, New Jersey, and Vermont. The move worked to garner sympathy. The police helped in the effort by actually trying to stop the children from leaving to get out of harm's way. The strike for bread and roses, a phrase that came from a Helen Todd poem the year prior, came to mean a strike that was not just for fair wages, but also for dignity and respect for those that made everything. In the end, a few of the workers' demands were met, but the legacy of the bread and roses strike would be the sympathy won from corners of the world that would not be ordinarily inclined to such, for the likes of such. Bill Haywood, Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, and the Wobblies wouldn't be able to rest before they would be called into action again. The 1913 Patterson Silk Strike was a work stoppage demanding an 8-hour day, better working conditions for textile mill workers in Patterson, New Jersey. The strike didn't start off well, with the arrest of Flynn for speaking to crowds consisting of other races, and would only get worse. Over 1,850 workers and strikers in total would be arrested, and the strike would end in 5 months after the opening of a more modern textile plant in nearby Clifton, New Jersey. thus ending the strike. While the IWW would certainly have other victories, like the AWO strike and the Lumber Union Industrial Workers strike, the Wobblies would face more than pushback from managers and government. The AFL and the IWW would butt heads at several strikes as their aims were at odds. The AFL wanted collective bargaining contracts, and the Wobblies wanted constant struggle with the management, and exhaustive work that not many were up for. And even Bill Haywood's mine workers would be at odds with the goals of the IWW. While the Western Federation of Mine Workers, at the founding of the industrial workers of the world, would make up more than a third of its membership, by 1913 the organizations were often working against one another. In El Paso, Texas, they competed to out-organize one another. And in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Wobblies actively tried to get the mine workers to not work after they had negotiated a contract. In the end, it was the Pennsylvania State Police that escorted the mine workers across the picket lines. By 1920, the IWW had seen its best days behind it. Leaders of the movement began to defect to other organizations, or, in the case of Bill Haywood, to Russia and the new Soviet regime. The pressure of a wartime United States proved to be too great for the radicals to serve, with the peak force of what was estimated to be 150,000 workers. The IWW went on to help in many other social justice fights, and exists today with well over 9,000 workers. The lasting legacy are the tactics and ideas, and they live on in the songs and art that the Wobblies created.
I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you or me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. In Salt Lake, Joe, I says to him, standing by my bed, they framed you on a murder charge. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. Says Joe, but I ain't dead. The copper boss has killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe. I did not die, says Joe, I did not die. And standing there as big as life, and smiling with his eyes, says Joe, what they forgot to kill went on to organize, went on to organize. Joe Hill ain't dead, he says to me, Joe Hill ain't never died. Where working men are out on strike, Joe Hill is at their side. From San Diego up to Maine, in every mine and mill, where workers strike and organize, says he. You'll find Joe Hill, says he. You'll find Joe Hill. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you were.